Whew, start off the stream with a big sneeze. Holy crap. What's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome to my bi-weekly or bi-monthly, every other month, uh, every other week stream here on the internet and the YouTube app. Good to see you guys. We got some staples in the house. Red Squirrel already in. Koshin, my man, good to see ya. Who else we got? Dixon Cider. I mean, 69, Dixon, 69. Such a degen, yeah. Say hi in the chat, guys. Let me know that you're here. Hope you like the new background. S Rayox. I don't know how to say that name, but welcome. Yep, let's go, DJs. Woo. Oh man, we have a lot of happenings over on Pulsechain. Some fun stuff to talk about. I'm gonna be on for probably a good 30 minutes here before I move over to school for the more personalized chat Zoom call. I'm going to give you guys that link right now so you can go join at 3 o'clock. Hey Tam, how you doing? Glad you were able to catch me live. It's good to see you. There we go. But yeah, a lot of stuff happening on Pulsechain. But before we get started, going over the general big picture news. Anybody have any topics they want to discuss? This is your time, guys. This is your time to use me as a resource. If you got questions, you got things you want to talk about. I'm going to cover some of the liquidity changes that's been happening on Pulsechain. Let me get Richard's tweet up as well. That'll be good to have lined up. So let me get that ready while you guys throw questions in. How are the charts looking right now? I looked this morning, but I haven't looked since I got back from jiu-jitsu. Probably not great. We've been going through a dump. People be selling. People be selling. Yeah. So maybe trying to set a bottom, maybe trying to recover. But we shall see. This is a pretty par for the course at this point for Pulsechain. This is nothing we haven't experienced before. It's all pretty typical. So yeah, let me get that Richard Hart tweet up. Well, you guys type in. Hey, what's up, One Arm Crypto? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Throw your name up here in the chat. All right, so there it is. All right, so we'll start with Richard Hart's tweet. Okay, let me present. All right, here we go. So zoom in a little bit. All right, so blah, 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 Bitcoin and Ethereum, Hart's Law, he discovered it. Go, Richard. Big thing here is this. The only thing you're missing is eyeballs, potential demand. Reducing supply through burning is one part of the supply and demand equation. Demand is the other. So pretty much, we all know this at this point. It's kind of old news, but the inflation rate for both Hex and Inc has been slashed pretty heavily. And actually recently, today or yesterday, there was another slash on Inc. It went down from 0.05 Inc per second to 0.045. So it was like another 10% decrease. Yeah, 10% decrease. Yeah, 10% decrease from its 0.051. And overall a 95.5% decrease in inflation overall. So it's like a 20-something X less inflation is coming out in the ink farms. And he pretty much addresses that here, and it's the same thing everyone's been saying in the ecosystem. Low liquidity equals more volatility. But that means it on both sides. It's a double-edged sword because price can go up really high really fast, but it can also go down really hard and really fast as well. So sellers have more firepower to affect the chart to the downside, just as buyers have more of a more power to affect the chart to the upside. But this is pretty much this is a net positive, I think, in my opinion. The Hex, the OA staked a lot of Hex. Shout out to Dipcatcher for calling that move ahead of time. So the whole ecosystem pretty much had two main points of inflation hex stakes, short rolling stakes, and ink inflation. That was just net expenses or net sell pressure on the chart, and now has been shored up. Of course, we still have big hex stakes that come out that could potentially be sell pressure. We don't really know. But for ink, for sure, the amount of overhead that it's causing on the ecosystem is much lower. And pretty much what Richard is saying here is, I fixed the supply part. There's less supply coming out. Now we just need demand for it to take effect on the chart a lot more. So yeah, overall, I think this is a good thing. And there's this website. It's been out for a little bit. Well, actually, no, we'll do Pulsex first. So, first thing, wrong button. First thing, ink inflation 0.045 ink per second. Before all the inflation decreases, it was 1 per second. So a 95.5% decrease in inflation overall. But there was actually a more recent change, I think, that happened today, and that's the weighting change. So if you notice, the weights for the liquidity bonding between Pulse and the other core tokens has decreased drastically. The APRs here were closer to like the APRs on PulseX and Pulse were like 4% before, and these were about like 20-ish%. And then the stable coins or ETH ones were about 30-40%. But they've weighted it more towards the stable coins and the ETH one, particularly DAI. And we all know Richard likes DAI a lot. So that makes sense why he would do that. But this move, essentially what it is, it's concentrating the ink rewards to those who are providing value backing liquidity. And value backing liquidity are these stable coins and ETH, because these are the liquidity pools that are giving Pulse its price and giving it its value. So if you think about it, everything in Pulsechain is valued relative to Pulse. So it gets its dollar value from its ratio versus Pulse, and Pulse gets its price, dollar value price, relative to the ratios in these three pools, because each of those assets that Pulse is paired with has pretty deep liquidity to the US dollar. So obviously the stable coins can be redeemed for $1 theoretically at their respective companies. DAI can be redeemed for ETH and the MakerDAO protocol, and then ETH has deep liquidity. There's really no issue on selling ETH for dollars. Very low slippage in the probably hundreds of millions of dollars. You can get out pretty effectively. So ETH is also a value backing token. And so he's decreased the liquidity, the incentives. So people may still stay in these farms. It's possible, like just because the incentive is decreased doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to remove their liquidity. But we have seen people remove their liquidity because that makes sense. Why would I be in this farm taking on the risk of a permanent loss if I'm not being compensated for it? So like this Pulsex Pulse one is probably going to start decreasing. It's decreased a lot already. This Hex, I imagine this Hex Pulse one, this is going to decrease by a lot. So this is an interesting move. So he decreased the Pulse to Ink and Pulse to Hex one to 2.5%. But Ink and Pulse is double that. So he wants a little bit more incentive between Ink and Pulse. And that's actually really interesting. And I'm trying to think why. I knew why before. But Ink is like the inflationary token of the ecosystem, and Pulse is like the deflationary token of the DEX. And so they're kind of like two sides of the same coin. So having a little bit thicker liquidity between those two makes a lot of sense in some ways, though I'm blanking on the exact mechanism right now or the exact routing. But when people sell, when the buy and burr occurs, like Ink, like it will be routed through this pool, and then it'll be routed through this pool too. That was a quick question. Crypto news shorts with Warren Lee. Any thoughts on the future of Hedron? It's up in the air. We're just waiting on Alex. There's really nothing is going to happen until he gives us more details. So once he gives us details on V2, testnet, mainnet, all of that, I think it has a bright future ahead of it. Hedron and Icosa have big mind share in the community. It's kind of like the OG altcoin in the Hex ecosystem. So now's a good time to get a position in it, but I wouldn't like go too heavily because it's like the future is up in the air, and there's no guarantee that we get a V2. Although I believe that we will, because I think Alex is working hard in the background. But I don't know. I don't talk with him or have any kind of lines of communication. So whenever he launches V2, we'll talk about it. Until then, we focus on other things. All right. Let's see. Where was I going with this? Now, this Hex Pulse one decreasing is really interesting. So if we look at the liquidity on the V1 farms, Hex has the lowest liquidity relative to Pulse. Inc. has basically $32 million of liquidity with Pulse, because this Pulse X essentially acts as Pulse because it has deeper liquidity over here. There's 20 million. So Pulse, X, and Inc. have pretty deep liquidity. Hex is the lowest liquidity asset of all of these, and its APRs are pretty wrecked. So that brings me to the next part, which is this website that I like. No, let's look at, there's one more thing to look at first. Hold on. And that is info V2. Because now that the V1 farms aren't paying out, people who want to provide liquidity and potentially earn an APR are going to go to V2, where there are fees accumulated, because V1 is only buy and burn. There are no fees accumulated. So let's see if this loads. Sometimes it takes a while to load. Refresh, info, V2. And we'll see what the APRs are paying and how much TVL there is. I personally am not a huge fan of V2 LPing for passive income if it's not a farm, and that's because the fees are auto compounded in the pool, so you have to do a little extra work to figure out what you're making. But it can be done. It can be done, and I'll show you guys how if this loads. Let's see. I hate how slow these websites are sometimes. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Huge pump Inc. Has Inc. been pumping? Let's see. It's the lazy chart right now. We might talk a little bit about that later. Inc. is not really pumping, but let's see. Yeah, not so much. All right. Anything? All right, we'll try one more time, and if not, we'll just move on. Oh, Inc. equals incoming. Gotcha. I sure hope so. It definitely does feel like a this is the last shakeout before the next one kind of thing. We've definitely been saying that for the better part of 2 years at this point. So, but I'm not worried. The thing is, oh, thank you. It loads up faster. I might have to set that up later. I don't want to do that all right now. I usually just use the website, but let's go to this Pampy.app. So I'll give you guys this website. It's really nice for quick calculations on what price could do given a certain amount of buy pressure. And so what I like to do is see how a certain amount affects Hex, because it's the lowest liquidity asset. So if we put 10 million into here, and if just in Hex. So what's important about this calculator is that you have to look at it as net buy pressure. So if somebody just injected $10 million, but somebody sold $10 million, or they would cancel out. So this is net. So if somebody buys 30, then it could be met with 20 million to get a net of 10, or however you want to do it. But this is a good moon math calculator based on the V2 liquidity pools. And so if we look, and I wonder if these have been updated based on the new how often this updates. But basically, $10 million of net buy pressure, which really isn't that much, gets us to 16 cents. So an 11x, and it pretty much doubles the all of the other core assets too. So if you pull up a whiteboard. So if we visualize the liquidity web of the core assets, it looks something like this. So we have stables. So I'll just represent my dollars plus ETH. These are connected to Pulse. And then Pulse has appendages for Hex, Pulsex, and Ink. And then Ink has an extra pool right here. So Pulse, Pulsex, and Ink kind of have this little triangle going on where all of them are sharing liquidity. And then Hex is kind of over here on its own, and it doesn't have direct liquidity with Pulsex and Ink. So if we look at how a new dollar that comes into the ecosystem, so we have a new dollar over here, and let's say they were buying Hex. So they put it into this pool. Then they get Pulse out from it, and that Pulse is then put into the Hex. It goes into buying Hex. So before anybody can buy Hex, they have to buy Pulse first. And this is the same for Pulsex and Ink. It's the exact same thing. So if 10 million new dollars, so 10 million new dollars, so plus 10 million new dollars to represent the net. If this goes in into Hex directly, then that brings it to 16 cents, which really is not that much money. I mean, it's a lot for an individual, but for like the market as a whole, that's not a really significant amount of money. Of course, you have to remember that as the price is going up, people with large bags who are looking for an exit have more firepower. So it's going to be easier to meet that $10 million with sell pressure because the price is going up. But if there is enough firepower and we can get a net $10 million of buy pressure, then it would send the price up to 16 cents. Now, what's interesting here, and let's use a different color for this. Let's use orange. Let's say that people buy Pulse or Ink or Pulsex. So it doesn't matter which one they buy. So it goes here. So Pulse gets pumped, and then Pulsex and Ink get pumped by that buy pressure as well. And then Hex gets gets a free ride as well because its value is relative to Pulse. What's interesting is that increased dollar value of Pulse, and I'll change the color again, can actually be used to then pump Hex as well. So people with big Pulse bags, because their price is going up, they can then pump the Hex price a little bit more if they do a ratio trade from Pulse into Hex. So if Pulsex and Ink pump, if Pulsex or Ink pump, well, let me say this differently. If Pulsex or Ink pumps, Pulse is automatically going to pump because it has to get routed through those tokens anyways. And then there's a bunch of Pulse out there that could potentially go into the Hex chart to get it to be a higher price without any new money necessarily coming in. So it's levering up the Pulse price, and then people with large bags can then buy up the Hex price with that without having to bring in new money. So they're levering up on the new money that's coming in that may be buying other assets or that may be buying altcoins. So this also applies to alts as well. So whatever alt ecosystem you like, if they're bringing in new money, that money goes to Pulse first. And so if we look at, excuse me for my cough. If we look at, say, $10 million into Ink, for example, that only pumps price 7x. And I say only, you know, that's a really good return. And then Hex gets a 3x ride. If we do it into Pulsex, gives you a 6x. And then Ink, it looks like gets a 6x as well. So Ink and Pulsex are essentially acting as the same coin based on the liquidity setup. So if you're buying one, you're kind of buying the other in a lot of ways. And that's because of the, oh, hey, we got it. All right, top pools. Peppers, Mitchie, has his dog die. Mitchie's paying a lot of APR right now. Let's see. Pulsex Pulse 21%, Hex Pulse 55%, and there is 7-day volume liquidities over here. $1.4 million of liquidity. Now this is pretty cool. Over the 7-day period, there's been 7 million. So a lot of money is being routed through here. A lot of buys are being routed through here. Pulse die 59%, eHex Pulse 108%. So yeah, I mean, there are opportunities to earn APRs here. What you would have to do to calculate like how much interest you're earning a day or how much you can take out, because the fees are automatically compounded into the pool. So let's take Hex Pulse, so it's 56%, let's say. I would divide it by 36500. So this is like how much percent you're earning a day. You earn about 0.1% per day. So let's say your position is $10,000, just to click a round number. Your fees, if everything stays the same, which is dynamic, would be $15 a day. So every week you could remove $107 of your liquidity, as you're harvesting. But you would have to do that math yourself. And APRs are always a retrospective look based on what's happened in the past. There's no guarantees going forward in the future because it's all dependent on volume. But if we get an increase in demand, then that would increase the volume by a lot. Hey, Hexker Michelle, how are you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. What do you guys think of all this info that I'm throwing at you? Is this useful? Is this helpful? Does it help you understand things better? Did you learn? Are you learning something? Give me a little feedback, guys. I always appreciate a little feedback. All right. And as you guys type, let's go back here. So yeah, any altcoins that are being bought, PulseX or Inc. are increasing the Pulse price, which for people who want to do ratio trades into a higher leverage asset like Hex, Pulse, or Inc., or even other alts, that would send those prices higher as well. Hex has the lowest liquidity, so it has the most potential for volatility, both to the upside and to the downside. But what's nice is, let's pop this up by 25 to 25 million into Hex. No, Pulse Hex. And we pretty much get to all-time highs with $25 million of net buy pressure. And so shout out to Gerardo for looking to rh.com. But even with the OA or SAC wallet trade of ETH being under 30%, which is kind of sucks. ETH has been not performing very well lately. It still has $461 million of liquidity of capital, which if it would use this funds to support the price, which we don't know if it will. It does have a history of doing that. Back last year in January, tried to pump the price up. My speculation would be, if it were to do this, which we don't know, this wallet would do that. It probably would wait until it's in profit. Or maybe it would do a little bit to buy some large wallets out, because it's a lot cheaper to buy them out now because the volatility is so much higher. So they'll push the price down a lot, and then you can buy it up pretty cheaper to at least stabilize price around a certain level that's quote unquote acceptable. But who knows? No expectations of that. We have no idea if it's going to happen, and there's a chance that it never happens. But we do know there's a wallet who has a history of buying these assets, have almost $500 million of liquidity, able to pump the price, and less than 10% of that, if that was net buy pressure, which it would take more than this actually to pump it up that high, would get us back to all-time highs. I mean, let's go to 20. Let's see if that gets us to all-time highs. Yeah, pretty much 22 probably. All-time highs on Hex, and then everything else gets a 5x on top of it, just for the fact that Pulse is going up in price. And if you want to be super moony, if you want to take all of the money and dump it into Hex, what would happen? This would never happen. But if we only put this money in and nobody sold any tokens, what would the price be? Holy crap, $166. Look at us go. We're making money, fellas and ladies. And everything else gets a 764x on top of it. That'd be pretty cool. That's not going to happen, though. We got some questions. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate that. Mr. Gonzalez. Yeah, I would. The APRs just are not worth it. The Inc. Pulsex one, is that? Yeah, you're earning less than 1% APR. If you're gonna do it in V2 to at least get a better APR. Or I would look for other yielding platforms like 2Fucks. They're offering much better APRs right now. In an incentive token, the 2Fucks and Fucks token. BB Croy, top of the afternoon to you, sir. Yeah, helps my decision about LP before alt start to move. Yeah, I really, the only farm that I would really recommend right now is actuator farms, just because the value prop is really good. Let's earn farms. It's probably still paying 50% APR, maybe a little bit more right now. But basically you're yielding on Hex and Hex, so the impermanent loss isn't so bad. Dashboard, earn farms. Let's see if it loads now. I guess my computer's just being slow because I'm streaming. All right. And as a reminder, friends, school.com, crypto sloth about, go join for the after party stream. If you want to have a more personal conversation, ask some questions on a more one-on-one level. They are recorded if you want to check that out. Not loading. Unfortunate. Let's try it one more time. I'm going to disconnect. Portfolio, earn, let's do volts. Let's see if that shows up. Volts. Farms, come on. You can do it. You can do it. Yeah, you can't do it. But anyways, you're yielding on these HTT tokens and Hex. And these HTT tokens at their the number that you see, so like HTT 3000 on day 3000, you can redeem it for 1 Hex. So the worst case scenario, if people just sell a bunch of these HTT tokens and yoink your Hex out from you, at least on day 3000 of Hex, you'll be able to get it back. That's still like over 1,000 days away. So you probably missed this bull market for it, which would suck, but you would get your Hex back in that scenario. So, and you can buy it, but that would be an incentive for people to buy it because they get basically a discount on Hex, a fixed return on their Hex at a guaranteed timeline. And for some people that may be attractive. But we don't know. We'll have to see if the opportunity presents itself and if people actually jump on that trade. All right, guys. Let's see. Lazy had a nice little pump. It was a good like a 2x in a day, something like that. Let's see. We'll go from this right here to up here. Yeah, a little over 2x earlier this week. That was pretty cool. Low liquidity asset, market cap's pretty low. We would love to get this thing up to $1 million at some point. But if anybody wants to be a lazy whale, it's about $1,100 right now. So not cheap, but not unreachable. Not unattainable. That's a better word for it. I'm really using this as an educational tool to talk about how to extract value and how to profit when you have a bag that's so big that you can't sell. So, I'm talking about this in my group in the background and using this as an educational tool. What I recommend is if you can swing it, grab a whale position and take 20 to 50% and put that in LP with a token that you like a lot. Because this is a low liquidity asset, it doesn't take much money for it to move up. So there's, let's just say $30,000 of liquidity, $15,000 of net buy pressure, 4x is the price. And that's just like the X times Y equals K formula. So the price can 4x pretty quickly with not a lot of money, assuming the buy pressure, of course. But yeah, I've been happy with the holders of the token so far. They've been pretty diamond-handed. Most of this downwards USD price is because Pulse price has been going down. But we have been going down a little bit versus Pulse, but we're holding up really, really well versus Pulse overall. Somebody scooped up a whale position here. And so we're still holding our highs versus Pulse for the most part. So that's good. That's good. So if you're here to here, it's a 2x on your Pulse overnight, which was pretty cool. Eventually, this stuff will be plugged into Trinity. I'm still working out exactly how I want to do it. But yeah, I'm very excited about this. This is one of my 69 tokens that I launched on pump.fun, Mr. Dixon. But this was the one that stuck. So this is the one I'm going to promote. I just rugged the other ones. I just took all the money because, who cares? But this one, I'm not going to rug. Don't you worry. Let's see. Yep. Yeah. I mean, so I kept the price low for a whale position on purpose for this exact reason. If it requires a lot of capital to get a big position, like you kind of have, it's kind of irresponsible to not take profits, right? Like if you have to put in 10 grand to get a whale position and you get a double, you probably should be taking some money out because 10 grand is a lot of money. But at the lows that you see down here, right over here, it was about $500 for a whale position. So with lower capital up front and higher lower capital up front with a lot of upside and the ability to have some power in this ecosystem that I'm building. Whoa, I'm falling. You can afford to hold, or it's not irresponsible to hold for larger X's, right? So you put 500 in and then 10 X's and then you have $5,000. Yeah, sure, you might want to take some out there, but especially if everything else is going up too, like you could still have $5,000 exposure to a low cap altcoin in the Pulsechain ecosystem without it being irresponsible to hold. So the price levels that I set for the token and kept it at so that other people can get positions, it was on purpose to facilitate, to stack the deck in my favor or in our favor, because it's everybody's favor, so that we get to see some higher prices and we get to see what it's like to LP your way out. Because with that 20 to 50% that you put into a token that you like, let's say PDI, because that's a really popular one right now. Because Lazy is so much lower in liquidity versus PDI, the chances of it having a period where it outperforms it is pretty high. Well, pretty high. I'd say pretty high. Because if any capital comes in after, if whatever capital comes in affects the price chart very drastically, versus PDI needs a lot more money coming in to affect the chart, which is possible for it to happen. So if you buy like a whale position and then you take like half of it and pair it with PDI, if a big impulse happens on the Lazy chart, then you'll be accumulating PDI with this big bag that you wouldn't be able. That would be difficult to sell on the market because you would affect the price. So you support the price movement upwards. You support the price by adding liquidity. You get to DCA out into a token that you like on the way up, and you'll still have some left over to continue doing so, and maybe participate in Trinity. So this is a way to get exposure to Trinity ahead of time, if you don't want to wait for that and you just want to go ahead and secure a position exposure right now. So I'm excited. This is my first foray into being a quote unquote builder. Although having a meme on pump.fun isn't really building anything, I just click a couple buttons and a coin came out. So if you want to participate in the experiment, in this little journey with me, it doesn't cost a lot of money, a little bit of exposure. Here you go. There's the deck screener address. Krieger for Christus. Trinity is the protocol I'm working with Red Squirrel and Executioner. We've run into some roadblocks, unfortunately. So as crappy as it is, it's going to take longer than expected to get it out. But we're working in the background to get it out. I won't go into detail on what Trinity is yet. I don't want to talk about it too much until we get some more clarity on our roadmap. But basically, if you want to get into have some exposure to what I'm building in the future, Lazy is a great way to do it, or our NFTs are a great way to do it. Although Lazy is a lot easier to get in. Lazy is a lot easier to get in because buying NFTs can be tough and exiting NFTs are tough. So with Lazy, you always have the option to just sell your tokens whenever you want, in a profit or even at a loss, versus an NFT, you don't have that same kind of exitable liquidity. The Trinity will be solving some of those problems of illiquidity in NFTs. But for now, I'd say Lazy is probably a better way to get early Trinity exposure if you wanted that. If you don't want that, then that's perfectly understandable because it's not out yet. But yeah, want to get rich the lazy way? I have the token just for you. Hold on. All right, yeah. And this is the lazy chart if you want to buy some. But you don't have to. Don't feel any pressure to. And hey, if you like what I do, if you learn something from my streams, if you get value from my liquidity providing series, and you don't want to support me through buying any of my services, like my private group or a consultation, which I totally understand, that's not for everybody, and you want to support me another way with upside financial potential for you. Throw a little lazy to support, throw a little pulse to support the lazy chart. And I would be greatly appreciative of that. And then you can always sell it whatever you want later and make a profit off of it. Make a profit off supporting me and make a profit off my brand. Maybe. No expectations. This is not financial advice. I'm a dentist who talks about crypto online and LARPs as a sloth. If you're taking financial advice from me, something has gone wrong in your life, and you should take a good hard look at yourself. Hey, I appreciate that, BB Crow. Thank you for coming live. I appreciate that. First time, long time follower, first time view, first time caller, long time listener, first time caller. Yeah, I hope you enjoy the LP series. Join me over at school. Let me get that link for you guys. We're gonna do another chat actually right now. So I gotta head off. So I'm gonna drop the school link here and get that call started. So that is it for me here. Copied. So if you want to keep chatting with me, come over to school, join the community, totally free. And the Zoom link is in the calendar section. So let me actually pull that up. So if we go here, if you join it, you go to calendar, or actually you can just click this biweekly Q&A, and then the Zoom link pops up with the password. So I'll probably be on that call for a good 30, 40 minutes. Depends on how many questions people have. But thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you, Cushion. I'll probably see you in a minute. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. I hope you enjoyed the stream. And we will be in touch. Stay lazy, friends.